We're saving the best for last, but before that, I want to direct your attention to this image here of Joe Tabbi and the prepubescent Nick Montfort. Nick, of course, is one of the founders of this Center for Digital Narrative, and of course the author of many books about digital media, and a incredibly prolific digital poet, collaborator with so many of us. And yes, we did write on The Unknown together with Joe Tabbi, one of the guest appearances in The Unknown, and we were almost evicted from a bar in Greenwich Village by an angry 82-year-old bartender who said, "Put computer away!" Nick.
All right. As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now, Professor Tabbi.
Can you see?
It seems that you've been living two lives. In one, you're Joseph Tabbi, literary scholar for a respectable university. You have a national ID number, you pay your taxes, and you help your academic community understand postmodern writers who have written books. Your other life is lived in computers, where you go by the hacker alias Joe. And in a so-called book review that you edit, give credence to all sorts of things that aren't books at all. Joe's offered his insights into many important American writers and their works, and has explored the edge cases of form and genre. For instance, he helped us understand how David Markson wrote, with index cards for note-taking and to feed into the composition process. And he's long advocated for and developed glossaries. So even if we keep to the respectable life of Professor Tabbi, literary scholar, what do these index cards with strange factoids and glossary entries packed with conceptual power have to do with each other? When Joe interviewed David Markson, this interview published originally in 1990, Markson's novel, Wittgenstein's Mistress, had attracted well-deserved attention. In the interview, Markson noted some stylistic connections between the Tractatus and note card writing. Markson said that reading Wittgenstein can be an ordeal, as if he stutters when he writes. Denying that his own style was like this, Markson admitted the novel is at least superficially similar to the Tractatus, by way of all those short paragraphs, and with the frequent sequences of variants that go through Kate's mind on a single idea. There's this type of brevity in Wittgenstein's other books. Wittgenstein himself may have written in notebooks and eschewed industrial cards of regular size, but his work is generally assembled out of brief remarks. One of his posthumously published books is entitled Zettel, Slips of Paper. The posthumous publication with his final writings on certainty is quite fragmentary. As Joe wrote in Cognitive Fictions, like Wittgenstein, over years of writing and through recurrent extended dry spells, Markson evolved a non-sequential method of composition that breaks the work into lexical units of at most a paragraph or two. Tabbi notes that this lexia-like chunking of text was contemporary with hypertext. Indeed, it's provocative to consider that Wittgenstein's Mistress and Reader's Block are more specifically contemporary with the beloved Apple software HyperCard. Joe takes his discussion of Markson's terse factual statements much further. But here, let me just note that most of the text in Wittgenstein's Mistress and Marxon's 4 books that follow, known as the Note Card Quartet, do seem to be about simple atomic facts. A format that has the potential to be more expansive is that of the glossary, which in its fullest form elaborates complex, not simple concepts and connects them to terms. Now, we can start with the idea of a truly minimal glossary, a bare word list or lexicon, which can be used for orthographic discipline, but not much else. It doesn't indicate anything about conceptual or semantic matters. As it happens, Wittgenstein himself wrote one of these, Dictionary for Elementary Schools, which was 42 pages long and had just fewer than 6,000 entries. It was published in 1962, the same year that Wittgenstein left teaching after causing a student to collapse with a severe blow. This makes this basic glossary, which doesn't seem to be composed of either facts or concepts, just words, the only other book besides the Tractatus that Wittgenstein published in his lifetime. When he was president of the ELO, Joe started a glossary for the electronic literature directory, explaining concepts important to born digital literary art in a very natural way, online. The terms were also glossed collaboratively rather than by a single author with an private language. Joe also never beat a student down onto the ground, by the way, so he did better than Wittgenstein in a few different ways. Now, even as we hurtle down the Infobahn in 2025, we academics are still very likely to find glossaries at the end of books. I just wrote one for the book that I co-edited, in fact. These declare that language is used in specialized ways in different fields, or even within a particular monograph or collection. So, in addition to the glossary connected to the electronic literature directory, the living glossary of digital narrative that is founded and growing here at the Center for Digital Narrative, Joe also concludes, or rather hands off, the Cambridge Introduction to Literary Posthumanism quite brilliantly, with a glossary that has substantial entries about literary posthumanism, written in a collaborative way, open to expansion. It's a powerful and posthuman way of thinking about the venerable humanities. Why not have a group of people passionate about different concepts help load them into our minds, even before we begin reading a book, where the corresponding term will be deployed? After attentively reading an entry in the Cambridge Introduction to Literary Posthumanism, we might have at least a hint of the feeling that Neo did in The Matrix. Not, I know Kung Fu, but I know plasticity, for instance. Now, starting from isolation, facts, and lacunae, which can be artful a la Marxon and rigorous a la Wittgenstein, we can grow to appreciate the intellectual power of collaboration, concepts, and connections seen very clearly in the collaborative glossaries that Joe has started and helped to develop. But back to the Matrix. I've already noted that in his work beyond books, Joe served as president of the Electronic Literature Organization. I was honored to serve as ELO president after Joe and was very pleased that the organization was sustained in great shape at this point, despite the challenges of moves from UCLA to the University of Maryland to MIT. But years before the ELO was established in 1999, you can see Joe's cyberpunk aspect in his work as publisher and editor. If you take a look at the first issue of EBR from 1995, which of course the articles or titles are listed here in this booklet, you can see that it looks like the Electronic Kool-Aid Acid book review. There's articles about Bruce Sterling's Dead Media Project and body modification. It's no surprise that this publication was praised in Hipper Than Thou Details magazine the year after it launched. I also like that EBR has maybe didn't survive longer than Publishers Weekly yet, but a lot of these magazines are gone, but EBR remains. The range of work in EBR, sort of collision between the very most outrageous aspects of digital culture and the rigor of academia. It reminds me of when I ran into Kate Hales, professionally known as In Catherine Hales, and Ken Goffman, professionally known as Are You Serious?, at SIGGRAPH 2000, where they were signing their recent books at adjacent tables. I had the privilege of introducing them. RU looked over at Kate's book and read the cover. How We Became Post-Human. Far out. An even greater honor than introducing these two was getting to publish my most important book review ever in EBR that Mark mentioned. I have to say I was also very pleased that there was a review of the New Media Reader in 2003 that was published there. And I think I'm very, very far from unique in being able to develop my ideas through reviews and getting to hear the reflections and feedback that others have provided. I think there's dozens, if not hundreds, of other valuable pieces of writing throughout the field that we can find. So I'll conclude by saying thank you, Joe, for the work of yours that has made the most direct difference to me, running the ELO, having all the work that you've done go into EBR, which has been essential to my trajectory as a thinker and writer. I appreciate both the seemingly standard literary studies work you've done and the many radical cyberpunk, not hyperpunk, that's dead, cyberpunk ways you advanced the electronic. I tip my mirror shades to you.